Good evening. I'm Mark Meckler, and it is the Sunday Night BattleCry, and you're here with me because you want to be. I mean, you clicked on the button, you choose to be here. So what happens from here, it's not on me, it's on you. You might notice I'm wearing my Hell No Joe shirt. I'm feeling pretty adamant about this right now. I don't get it. The Democrats always say, we're not going to come for your guns, except for we're going to come for your guns, right? And we're not going to take away any of your guns, except for, hell yes, we're going to take away your ARs. We're not coming for your guns, except for those of you who like to build guns as a hobby. And in that case, we're coming for your guns, right? We're not coming for your guns, except for you don't need high capacity magazines, right? What is a high capacity magazine, by the way, right? California, what do they got? 8 in a magazine. Some states say 10. A high capacity magazine is whatever you want, right? That's what you should get. You should have whatever you want. Yeah, the Second Amendment is really an interesting amendment to the Constitution. I can't find any place in the Second Amendment where it says the government shall not infringe on the right to keep and bear arms, except if it wants to do so. That's not in there. It doesn't say shall not infringe on the right to keep and bear arms, except reasonably. It's not in there. It doesn't say shall not infringe on the right to keep and bear arms, except for common sense gun laws, right? It doesn't say that anywhere. So look, the Second Amendment's really clear. You have the right to keep and bear arms. This is a fundamental natural right, natural law, right? The right of self-defense. And if you don't have the right to keep and bear arms, if you don't have the right to firearms to protect yourself, then you don't have the right to self-defense. Every human being, every animal, every living creature has the right to self-defense. And so this is incredible. It is a natural law. This is God-given. We have the right to defend ourselves. And we have the right to do so using firearms. Otherwise, let's be frank, you won't be able to defend yourself, right? Generally speaking, if you're a 110-pound woman and a 200-pound or 185-pound male attacks you and grabs you, how well can you defend yourself, relatively speaking? You're at a disadvantage. This is one of the things that really frustrates me about the idea of controlling common sense gun control, right? Who should have guns? Like feminists should love guns. Guns are the great equalizer. Guns allow women to actually have a fair chance against bigger, stronger men. They're the great equalizer. Of course, I think you should go get trained. Of course, I think you should know how to use firearms. I think this is really important. In fact, I'll be teaching a constitutional defense course out at Frontsite with Rick Green at the end of this month, May 20th through 24th. So if you want to learn about the Constitution, if you want to learn firearms self-defense, you want to learn to be competent with a handgun, come and join us at Frontsite at the 20th through the 24th. There's a 2-day and a 4-day class. I'll be there all 4 days. Rick and I will be having a good time together. But you got to be into firearms, right? You got to be into firearms. That's why I'm wearing my Hell No Joe shirt. If you like the shirt, by the way, I don't know, we've sold a couple thousand of them so far. You can get yours, conventionofstates.com/store, conventionofstates.com/store. You can get your Hell No Joe shirt. You should send them to us too. Yeah, you should send those photos to us. You can send them to me personally if you want. If you're wearing your Hell No Joe shirt, send that to M. Meckler at cosaction.com. Maybe we'll post some on the website. Again, conventionofstates.com/store, because the Second Amendment matters, and Hell No Joe is the right philosophy right now. And frankly, Hell No Joe is the right philosophy for just about everything that's going on right now. You guys have a chance to watch the State of the Union? I'm sorry. If you did, I'm really sorry, because it was really, really bad, really horrible. I hate the State of the Union address. You know, I'm with Ben Shapiro on this one. It's like royalty, right? We treat the president like he's a monarch. He comes in, everybody waits, everybody applauds for him, everybody's shaking hand. Oh, wait, nobody's shaking it. Fist bump, right? Or elbow bump, because they're all so afraid of COVID at this point. Now, this is one of the most ridiculous things about the State of the Union this year. It's just, I don't even understand it. Walk into the room, right? It's a joint session of Congress, though not everybody could go because they couldn't sit side by side, right? You had to have social distancing. Every single one of those people is vaccinated. 100% of them are vaccinated. So here's the vision in the room. They walk in, everybody's wearing a mask. They're all vaccinated. They're social distancing. They're all vaccinated. What? I don't get it. What's the message from the Biden administration? What's the point of getting vaccinated if you have to socially distance and wear a mask? It's asinine. You don't. That's the real deal. If you've been vaccinated, If you're a healthy person, you don't have to socially distance and wear a mask. That's asinine. So that's the visual they give us, right? They walk in, we treat the president like a monarch. And by the way, I don't like it when it's Trump. I don't like it when it's Biden. I don't like it when it's Bush. I don't care who it is. State of the Union used to be in writing. It was a letter written by the president to Congress. Here's what I think the State of the Union is. We got to go back to that. If I were president, I wouldn't address a joint session of Congress. Maybe I'd walk in and say, you're all dismissed or something like that. You're all fired. If I had the right to do that, I'd be a monarch. They'd be treating me like they treat the president in the State of the Union. So, anyways, just the visuals were terrible. The speech was, what's the right word? Dull, boring, stupid, ridiculous, all of the above, right? Joe Biden, I think the point is he's going to throw as much garbage at the wall as he possibly can and see what sticks. This is a guy that was supposed to be the moderate, right? We were supposed to vote for old, crazy, demented Uncle Joe because he wasn't a radical. That's how he beat Bernie Sanders, if you might recall. The party rallied against him because they didn't want to nominate the radical. And Joe Biden actually said, I beat the socialist, right? He claimed to be a moderate. Everything he's doing is radical right now. Every single thing he's doing is radical. There's nothing moderate that he's doing. So he lays out in incredibly boring terms an incredibly radical platform. Can you imagine 10 trillion in spending? I didn't like the way Trump spent. It was ridiculous. 4 trillion, but this is 10 trillion in spending. By the time they're done, it'll be 20 trillion in spending. How much money is that? I don't know. I don't know. Nobody knows. I know it's too much. I know it's more than the country can ever afford to pay back. I know you're going to pay for it. I know your kids are going to pay for it. Your grandkids are going to pay for it. Ultimately, what can't continue won't continue. These guys use something they call modern monetary theory, which means they're crazy. That's what it means. It means they think you can print as much money as you want with no effect. You can spend as much money as you want with no negative effect. But the reality is inflation is already coming. Lumber has doubled in price. Commodities are skyrocketing. Oil is up. This is going to happen. There is going to be price inflation. When you dump this much money into a marketplace, and by the way, let's make no bones about it. This is manufactured money. This isn't money backed by assets. This isn't money backed by gold. The government doesn't have any money. They're printing and borrowing money. Right? So when you do that and you dump that kind of liquidity into a market, you create inflation. And we're already seeing inflation. And what Uncle Joe is going to do, what the radical leftists are going to do, they're going to try and cover the inflation with the idea that the economy is growing. Then they're going to jack up your taxes. Your taxes. Oh no, it's only going to affect people who make over 400,000, they say. How is that possible? What happens when you tax people who make over $400,000? People who own businesses, own small businesses, own large businesses, those taxes get passed along. How do they get passed along? To the consumer, right? Charge real estate developers higher taxes. Who do they charge that money to? Home buyers. Charge grocery store corporations higher taxes, a higher corporate tax. They say they're going to raise it by 8%. Who pays that? Customers in grocery stores. Poor people, middle-class people. So you think, if you're one of those people who thinks, I'm not going to pay any more taxes because I don't make $400,000 a year, how sadly mistaken you are. You're going to pay it inflation because your dollar is worth less. By the way, that's a tax. When they print money, when they dump more money into the economy, your dollars are worth less, and that's a tax on you. Free money for the government, it's a tax on you. You wouldn't tolerate it if it was a tax raise, but they do it by printing more money, dumping more money into the economy. So they're going to torture you. They're going to make your standard of living less, and they're going to cover that up with a growing economy because the economy is naturally going to grow. We're coming out of the largest man-made recession, almost a depression in human history. It's man-made. It's entirely created, intentionally created by human beings. And as the economy continues to open up, it's already started to open up. If you live in a red state like I do, it's really open. If you live in South Dakota or North Dakota or states like this, it's already open. States like that, Iowa, already open. The economies are booming. But you're even going to see this start to happen in blue states as they open the economies up. And they're going to cover up the inflation, and they're going to cover up the taxation with a growing economy. So take the blindfold off. Don't be fooled. This is what old Uncle Joe laid out in the State of the Union address. If you could stay awake and listen to it, that's what you would have heard. I didn't listen to the whole thing. I'm going to be honest with you. I watched highlights because I couldn't. And I want to keep my dinner down. I don't want to be sick for days. So I generally don't watch them. Look, I generally don't watch them if it's Trump. I generally don't watch it if it's Bush, if it's Obama. I don't really care. I don't like the State of the Union. But I do absorb the information. I do look at the summaries and what was in there, and it's really, really, really bad. You know, the other thing that's really bad, according to Joe Biden, America is really bad. You know, cops, he said, they're generally really good, except for they're systemically racist. I don't understand that. And men and women who put on the badge, he said, are generally good. Most of them really good, except for they're systemically racist. What the hell does that mean? What does that mean? They work in a system that's racist. They may not be racist. So essentially, they're all racists, right? This is the new narrative that everybody's a racist. You don't know it, but you're a racist. You've never had a racist thought in your life, but you're a racist, right? You don't judge people by the color of their skin. You judge them by the content of the character. You're a racist. Because unless you're an anti-racist, that means you're a racist. And what does it mean to be an anti-racist? It means that you believe what they believe. What do they believe? Who the hell knows? Because it's different every single day. I'm not exaggerating when I say that. It's absolute insanity. So unless you think the 1619 Project is good and rewriting American history to make America evil and to write a false history is good, then you're a racist, right? Unless you march with BLM and burn down cities, then you're a racist. Unless you want critical race theory taught in the classroom, indoctrinating your children, making them hate each other based on the color of the skin, then you're a racist. This is what Joe Biden wants. This is what Joe Biden's education department wants. It is insanity. That's what we've got coming from the left today. But this is something we should be very worried about. Worried about it in the sense that the country is veering towards Marxism. The people who are in office today in Washington, D.C. are Marxists. They may not say that they're Marxists. They may not be avowed Marxists, but they are promoting Marxist theory. At the root of Marxist theory is conflict between people. That's what they want. And the very essence of Marxist theory is class conflict, rich versus poor. That's what they try to do, right? They don't care that a rising tide lifts all boats. That's a fact, by the way. It's not just a saying. They don't care about that. What they care about is pitting people who have less against people who have more. Do you know poor people, quote unquote, in America are better off than poor people anywhere else? That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to the Marxists because the Marxists have to divide us by race, by class, by gender, right? They're trying to do this to us. They have to make gay people hate straight people, black people hate white people hate black people, Asian people hate white people. They have to do this. This is the root of Marxism, is you create all this conflict in a society and you make us hate each other. That's the goal. Because if you can do that, if you can cause everything to crumble down, if you can cause cities to burn, if you can cause violence in the streets, then people just want stability and they accept totalitarianism. They'll accept the boot on their neck as opposed to the burning of their cities. And who do you suppose will be wearing that boot? The radical Marxists. Like, this is not anything new that I'm talking about. This is history. If you want to look at the history of totalitarianism, of Marxism, everything that Marxists do, that they ultimately end up forcing you to do, starts as a suggestion. We're hearing this right now. Right? They're talking about, the Marxists are talking about, we shouldn't eat meat, right? This is, the buzz is out there. You shouldn't eat meat anymore. Why? Global warming. That's why. Right? You shouldn't eat meat because global warming. By the way, Americans don't give a damn about global warming. I don't know, it's like number 15 on their list of concerns or 50 or whatever it is. Like, people say, oh, I care so much about global warming. Are you willing to pay more in gas? Nope. You willing to drive a smaller car? Nope. You willing to pay higher taxes? Nope. Americans don't really care about global warming, and that's good. They shouldn't really care about global warming because the reality is, the science is, the earth is warming right now. There's no proof that it's humans. If it is humans, it's a tiny, tiny increment. And by the way, you can't do anything about it. We as a nation can't do anything about it. You know why? Because China's not going to do anything about it. India's not going to do anything about it, but President Biden says he's going to do something about it. You know what else Biden said in the State of the Union address? Incredible. He said, we have it within our power, wait for it, to cure cancer. It's within our power right now. I want to know, who are the evil SOBs that are preventing us from curing cancer right now? Is it Joe Biden, who's been in Congress for 150 years? Who's keeping us? Is it evil big pharma? You mean the guys that cured COVID, that came up with all the treatments, that came up with the vaccine in record time, like absolutely incredible scientific achievement? You mean those really bad guys? Those are the ones who could cure cancer but won't do it right now? This is just, it is so offensive and outrageous when they say stupid stuff like this. Can we maybe someday cure cancer? I'm hopeful. I think maybe someday, although there's so many kinds of cancer and cancer mutates and changes, but maybe we can. But the idea that we have it in our power right now, so he's pointing at the enemy, presumably people on the right, like me and you, and saying, we could if you guys just weren't so evil. If you weren't so evil, we could cure cancer right now. So this was a divisive speech. This was a speech intended to sound like he was being a unifier, which he's not. He's actually a divider. He actually wants you to hate your neighbor. The left wants your neighbors to hate you. They want people like us to be silenced, right? They want silencing of free speech. They want to take away our weapons. They don't want us to be able to worship as we see fit. This is incredibly divisive stuff, really bad stuff. That's what the State of the Union was filled with. Nothing hopeful, nothing good, just an absolute mess. All right. You know, another thing that he talked about, which this again drives me crazy, masked up, vaccinated, COVID's not over, right? Still a big risk. Wrong. COVID is over. Can I repeat that again? COVID's over? It's over. Yeah, you can quote me. I'm going to get all kinds of emails. People are going to hate me for saying COVID's over. It's over. It's done. Stop wearing your mask. You know, we're sitting around at breakfast this morning, my family, and my mom was saying that she saw in one of the grocery stores, it said something like, it's county ordinance, you have to wear a mask. Do I need to wear a mask? I said, no, don't wear a mask. Like, my parents are double vaccinated, they're done, they've been vaccinated. Why do they have to wear a mask? How ridiculously asinine is that? The CDC now says that you don't have to sanitize everything all the time, right? Oops, got that one wrong. Mask, not mask, mask, not mask, sanitize, not sanitize. They don't know what they're talking about. It's over. We've reached herd immunity. If you want to get vaccinated, more power to you. Go get vaccinated. If you want to wear a mask, I mean, some people just like it. I've actually been seeing people say openly that you wear a mask because it shows that you care about other people. How about just a smile? How about helping somebody out to their car with their groceries when it looks like they're struggling? How about helping an old lady cross the street, right? You don't have to wear a mask to show people you care. This asinine. Joy Reid this week on MSNBC said that when she goes jogging, she wears 2 masks. Unhealthy, by the way, but that's what she said. I don't know if it's true, but that's what she said. She jogs in 2 masks. She's vaccinated. These people are lunatics. These are now religious rights. COVID is a religious belief for them. Wear a mask, jog in a mask, wear a mask when you're vaccinated. I don't know. It's just insanity. It's crazy. It's a ritual. It's intended to demonstrate that you're on the left. I travel to a lot of state legislatures. You can almost always tell who's on the left because you look out on the floor of the legislatures, people on the right generally not wearing masks, people on the left generally wearing masks. There are exceptions, especially on the right. You'll see maybe elderly people, people with pre-existing conditions. They're worried, more nervous. You might see a couple. But mostly now it's just a political division thing. And if they want to try to force me to wear a mask, I think I'll try to force them to wear my Hell No Joe shirt or something like that. Just absolutely ridiculous stuff. All right, so no, COVID's over. Stop wearing your mask unless you really want to. And if it makes you feel comfortable to wear a diaper on your face, I'm just not into it. You can go for it. All right, they're talking still about packing the Supreme Court. I just want to say it's not going to happen. All right, if you're having nightmares about this, if you're one of the people running around screeching about it on Facebook or wherever you are, don't. It's not happening. All right, they're not going to expand the Supreme Court right now. Manchin won't go for the end of the filibuster. Sinema won't go for the end of the filibuster. It's not going to happen. It doesn't mean we shouldn't be worried about it. It means we shouldn't be panicked about it. We shouldn't panic ever. But the bottom line is this is not something that's imminent. I do think this is one of the reasons we need a convention of states. Get into a convention of states. We could propose an amendment to limit the Supreme Court to 9, or to create a mechanism maybe where if we want to expand the Supreme Court, it takes 2/3 or 3/4 or 3/5 of the states to agree on how that expansion should look. I think we should put something in place to prevent Supreme Court packing. It's a stupid idea. We've had the same number of justices on the Supreme Court for 150 years. This is another part of the slide towards totalitarianism. Why do I say that? If you want to look at what happened in Venezuela, one of the first things Hugo Chavez did, pack the Supreme Court. Just turn the Supreme Court into another branch of the government controlled by a single party, so it just becomes a super legislature. That's what they're trying to do. That's what the left is trying to do right now. They're not going to get away with it. Don't panic. Don't worry about it. Calm down. It's all going to be okay. All right. I want to talk a little bit about something that is sort of a philosophical issue we're hearing a lot about today called common good conservatism. Have you all heard of that? Common good conservatism. If you haven't heard of it, you might want to look it up. Really interesting. There's a debate going on in conservative community about how do we use our conservative ideals? How do we, as conservatives or libertarians or freedom-loving people, use power when we get it? Do we force our values and our ideals on society? That's the view of common good conservatism. And it is an actual response to radical leftism, because what the radical left has been doing for decades, probably for 100 years, is every time they're in power, they use their power to force liberal ideals on us, liberal ideology on us. Now, progressive ideology, Marxist ideology on us. They use their power to force their values, their morals, their way of looking at the world, or I would say their lack of values and lack of morals on us. It's not good enough that they'll just let us live our lives the way we want to live our lives. That's just not how it works. What they do is we're going to force you to believe, right? We're going to put laws in place that make it so you have to do what we want you to do. And the question is, should conservatives do the same? Because I would say right now, our general philosophy of conservatives is much more live and let live, right? You know, we don't care that much what you do as long as you're not hurting other people. It's sort of conservatarian, right? Like libertarian and conservative. We generally don't want to tell other people what to do, but it's hurting society at this point because people are doing really bad stuff. So there's an argument being made right now for what we call common good conservatism. So I'm just going to leave it at that for tonight, but you might want to look this up because you're going to see this debate come up. You're going to need to ask yourself, you're going to need to know, you're going to need to think about what kind of conservative are you? How do you think we should use conservatism in the future? All right. Another question. I get this question all the time. I'm reading it up here. I wrote this down, but I think this is really important. We had the State of the Union address this week, right? And the question is really, what is the State of the Union? It's not what the politicians tell you. What's going on out there in the country today? And I'll tell you, generally speaking, and you might be surprised by this, I think the State of the Union is pretty good. And here's what I mean by that. I travel around the country a lot. Right. I was just in Tulsa this weekend, Tulsa, Oklahoma. Obviously, I live in Texas. I've been in North Carolina, South Carolina, Idaho, Wyoming, Montana, all over the country this year. Virginia. I'm going to be traveling a lot more upcoming soon. What's the State of the Union? And the State of the Union is contentious, but I think it's good. I think there are a lot of liberty-loving people that are waking up out there. I was talking to some parents day before yesterday, and in Tulsa, and they were telling me that their kids are semi-conservative, sort of left of center conservatives, is what they said. And they said kind of liberal, but mostly conservative. And they said over the last few months, with everything that the Biden administration is doing, they now consider their kids angry, hardcore conservatives. Because their kids kind of didn't love Trump are now saying, are you kidding me? This is what we got instead of Trump? This is unbelievable. We didn't vote for this. We didn't vote for cities burning. We didn't vote for huge tax increases. We didn't vote for 1619 and anti-racism and critical race theory being crammed down on us. We didn't vote for cancel culture. and they see what's coming, and they see it like a speeding freight train coming right at them. So I think there are a lot of younger people that are starting to flip. They don't like the way the radical left's going. They don't want to see the country go that direction. So I think there's a lot of people waking up. I saw this during the Tea Party days. Tea Party Patriots, I was the co-founder of Tea Party Patriots, talked to millions of people over the years. I saw that kind of energy rising. I see that energy rising now. I think we're going to see a big swing in the 2022 midterms. I don't know what happens in 24, too far out to predict. But right now, I think the midterms look pretty good for people who like liberty. I think Democrats are going to lose a bunch of power. And I think what comes out of that is kind of a stagnant government, which is good. We like that. We like it when government can't do very much. And I think that's what you're going to see out of 2022. I don't want to go to Q&A. We got COS on the move, by the way, South Carolina, North Carolina, Michigan, Ohio, lots of stuff going on out there. So just keep an eye on that over the next week. But let's get into some Q&A before we close out here. Just a few minutes left. All right, Producer G's got my questions up for me. Let's see. Pappy Kleinsmith says, how much for those constitutional defense classes? They're pretty cheap. I think it's $99 for the 2-day, and then it's like $150 or $199 for the 4-day. That doesn't include, you need to bring your own firearm, or you can rent one there. It's a little bit more, but it's pretty reasonable. You got to get yourself out to Nevada. Obviously, got to pay for a place to stay. Gary Estelet says, where are the T-shirts made? I'm happy to say, made in the USA. Good stuff, huh? I like that. It's hard to find shirts sourced in the USA, but we did it, so they are definitely sourced in the USA. Kara Jower says, is the left trying to collapse the US dollar as the world standard? I don't think the left is trying to collapse the US dollar as the world standard, but I think that could be the result. That would be a very ugly thing. Ryan E23 says, how far along is COS? Takes 34 states to call a convention of states. So far, 15 states have joined. Peter Kane says, can COS address the big tech issues and other big corporations? I would say no, really, Peter. That's not an issue, because what COS can do at the federal level is limit the scope, power, and jurisdiction of the federal government. I'm not sure there's a way we can deal with big tech that way. I think we can deal with big tech by revising Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act. I think that would be important to remove some of the liability protection. I think the best way to deal with these big corporations, the big communications corporations, Facebook, Twitter, Google, etc., is through consumer fraud laws at the state level. And a lot of the state AGs are doing this. If they're not doing it in your state, you should ask your AG to do it. Jeff Hall said, what happened to the flu? Jeff, this is really interesting. We didn't see much of a flu season. And I don't think we're going to see much flu. And I think that's because people are sanitizing their hands so much. They're wearing masks all the time. It does cut down transmission when you do that stuff. So, by the way, one thing we should have learned out of all of this, wash your hands, right? Cough into your sleeve. Those are rational, reasonable things to do. Don't shut down your economy and wear a mask all the time. All right. Garrett Humbertson says, let's see. Producer G says, Mark White says, what about raising the number of SCOTUS justices to 13, but have the states nominate replacements on a rotating basis with term limits? That's plausible as well. I'd like to see the justices come from a variety of states and a variety of law schools instead of all the elite law schools. I hate this. And by the way, I think conservatives need to play some hardball. If they're going to pack the Supreme Court, if this is what the left wants to do, then what we should say is we're going to take the most conservative states, we're going to split them into 4 states. What if we made Alabama into 4 states, right? And split it into 4 red states, 2 more senators per state. I mean, that would pack the Senate. Well, let's do enough of those that we get a super majority in the Senate, right? We'll just split the red states. Now, this is just a ridiculous thing. Obviously, we don't want to do that, but we need to say that we have a nuclear option if they're going to pull a nuclear option. And we can do that. We'll take over the House and Senate again. And when we do, we're just going to split red states, and we're going to add a whole bunch of senators. And then we're going to get enough senators that they can propose an amendment. We're going to have enough states that the states can ratify an amendment, right? And we'll just pack everything. We'll just make it illegal to be a Democrat. No, I'm just kidding. We're not going to do that. Here's the deal, guys. You got to be in the fight. This is how we're going to end tonight. This is really important. You got to say, hell no, Joe, if you don't like what's going on with this administration in Washington, D.C. Whether it's Republican, whether it's Democrat. Republicans, in my opinion, not doing a great job defending against all of this stuff. You got to tell them no on the spending, no on the trillions of dollars, no on the taking away your rights. yes on giving you your rights back. We got to take our rights back. That's our obligation. That's your obligation as an American. That's your heritage. Hey, I've told you the Levi Preston story. Levi Preston, if you don't know who he is, look him up. He is my dog, but he's also a figure in American history. He said that the reason they fought the American Revolution is because they had always governed themselves and they always intended to. They were willing to put it all on the line. So the question you got to ask yourself is, what are you willing to do? Are you willing to put it all on the line? I'm not asking you to go out and arm up and fight a revolution. Nobody's asking you to do that. We're asking you to be engaged. Be engaged in Convention of States. Go to conventionofstates.com, sign the petition, click the Take Action tab, get involved. We're asking you to get involved at the local level, right? Get involved by going and running for your school board, running for your city council, running for party positions. Take over the local party. It's up to you to be involved. It's not enough to lament what's going on, to yell at the television, to be angry what you see in the news, to oppose people who are in office by yelling, by writing letters. You have to get involved. Levi Preston went out on the field of battle because he had always governed himself and he always intended to. And I think I've always governed myself. You always governed yourself. And if we intend to, we got to be in the fight. I promise you this, I'm in the fight for as long as it takes. This week on Saturday, I went to a memorial service for my good friend, Dr. Tom Coburn. Tom passed away at the very beginning of COVID last year. March 28th of last year, he passed away. We lost a real warrior, a real statesman, a good friend, a mentor. The thing about Tom is Tom never gave up the fight. Tom always used to tell me when he was suffering from cancer at the end, I'm going to die with my boots on. I'm going to die in the fight. I'm going to fight as long as I possibly can. I remember sitting in a legislator's office one time, and actually we were in a donor's office, and the donor said, the thing is, I only have so much time. My time is limited. And Tom had stage 4 cancer at the time. He said, he kind of leaned in and he said, don't talk to me about limited amount of time. I have stage 4 cancer. I've got a limited amount of time and I'm still in the fight. Stunning moment. So if we're going to stand for what Tom Coburn stood for, we're going to stand, we're going to be in the fight. I can tell you, I'll fight as long as I can. I want to be like Tom. When the time comes, I'm going to die with my boots on in the fight. I hope you'll join me. Go to conventionofstates.com, get signed up, click the Take Action tab, become a district captain. We need you. Get your shirt, conventionofstates.com/store. Love you guys. See you next week on the BattleCry.